Hello, this is the CFP Board Prospective Registered Program webinar. I'm Dr. Charles Chaffin, Director of Academic Programs Initiatives at CFP Board. Appreciate you joining me for this webinar. Many of you are listening and watching live, and many of you are watching a recording which will be available on our site for the 2015 and 2016 periods. We're going to talk about a couple of points here. We're going to talk about the rationale for starting a CFP Board registered program. I'll talk about the criteria, but also get into some elements associated with program sustainability, and I'll talk a little bit about the CFP Board registered program conference. There's lots of data that suggests that the financial planning profession is growing. Money Magazine states that it's going to grow 41% up through 2016. The Department of Labor suggests 20% growth through 2024. So there are a lot of opportunities for individuals entering this profession or staying in this profession, and we certainly see that when it comes to the growth of our programs. Student placement is certainly something that is a hot topic amongst American higher education right now, as both states and regional and discipline-based accreditors are looking at student placement, employment in a related program of study. Certainly this is related to student loan debt, which is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. The service-oriented profession, which is a practitioner-based profession, which I think you'll see if you are new to financial planning and new to CFP Board registered programs, that there is very much a practical approach to our requirements and certainly to financial planning in general. The recognition of CFP certification continues through certainly through our public awareness campaign, but through a lot of our activities. CFP certification has become the designation for financial planning, and certification has become an important component of higher education, and so those components combined have made some considerable growth within our colleges and universities. Our current numbers, when this webinar is recorded, is we have 130 baccalaureate programs, 191 certificate, 51 masters, and 5 doctoral. That comes to 377 programs at 230 colleges and universities. In addition, we have 60 programs in development. These numbers have grown considerably within the past several years, and you can kind of see that in overall program totals, we're up 15%. This does relate to the points that I mentioned, is that it really is about placement and opportunities for institutions to place students, to engage firms, to support the program, and to support the college or school or department that the program is housed. So it's a very exciting time right now for financial planning, and a very exciting time for CFP certification. And I visit probably somewhere around 50 campuses per year, and there are other programs of study that are looking at being cut, and being able to come to a campus where programs are being added is a really great thing. And so it's an exciting time, and it's an exciting time for your institution to be considering starting a program or adding an additional one. So seeing the breakdown of how things have changed relative to the distinction between degree and non-degree, we're very close to a 50-50 split between degree and non-degree, which is quite different than what it was in 2010. So our baccalaureate programs are up almost 50% in 5 years, and that relates a lot to the notion of placement, and I think too the idea of financial planning becoming an accepted discipline within academia, and we're certainly here at CFP Board taking on a number of initiatives to try to further that beyond the registered program process. Regarding the The prospective programs are programs in development. The vast majority of them are baccalaureate programs, and we've got a few PhD programs and a few master's programs. And development is really defined as anywhere from the institution is in favor or is definitely committed to developing a registered program, but still needs to look at curriculum, look at faculty hires. Maybe the process of adding a few courses is not complete, up to institutions that will be adding, will be submitting documentation or have submitted documentation, but it's not approved yet. And some of those programs on this list will be come to fruition very soon, and others may take still a couple of years. But the vast majority are at the baccalaureate level, and from our perspective, we are agnostic when it comes to both business models within financial planning, but we're also agnostic when it comes to program types. We want strong programs that are going to meet our requirements and see students through the program of study and on to sitting for the exam. If there was one area that we're certainly interested in is the PhD, given the fact that we've seen such a rise at the baccalaureate level, that we are certainly keen on preparing the next generation of faculty to come in and lead those programs of study. So I mentioned our baccalaureate programs have increased, and we're from 90 to actually 130. Our total number of certificate programs have pretty much stayed the same since 2010. And I think I think in some cases that may be a zero-sum game with regard to the market of existing planners. I think there's opportunity out there when it comes to career changers, that some institutions have taken advantage on the certificate side and some haven't. We've added 2 new PhD programs since 2010 registered with us, and we have 3 that are currently in development. And as I mentioned, we have 60 total programs in development, and most of those are housed at the our baccalaureate programs housed in the colleges or schools of business, and most of the time in the finance department. So how do you go about starting a program at your institution? And just from a very basic level, we talked about the why. Well, how? Well, first talking about the internal support. In most cases there is a program champion, usually within the faculty. And they're interested in leading this process. It's difficult not to have that program champion, even if you have administrative support. In some cases, I'll go to a campus and meet with the dean, and the dean will be excited about it, but the department really isn't, and it generally never happens. So having that champion, I think, is really, really important, and making that case to both colleagues across the division or department as well as to administration is important, and I work with institutions on that, and I'm happy to continue to do that with your institution as you look at going forward. External support is, as all of you know, is very, very important, and that can exist through practice, whether it's local regional firms or local and regional individual practitioners. So in a lot of cases, I've been working with some groups of practitioners, and in a lot of cases it's FPA chapters, and they talk about the need for having a program. And essentially what I tell them is, as they start to prepare for helping the program, I usually tell them that there are 5 things to think about in supporting a board-registered program at a university or a college or university. Monetary resources, of course, are helpful, particularly if it's going to be able to fund an additional adjunct position. Certainly, we'd love to see funding for an endowed tenure track position, but to start off, funding an adjunct position can be very helpful in making that argument. The second point, which is a really hot topic amongst all of our existing programs, is practice making a commitment to hiring graduates of the program. And as there's more demand for graduates of our programs, institutions are really looking at this and saying, we've got a few jobs for every one of our graduates, and we want our graduates to be placed in positions where they're sitting next to other graduates of the same program or another program, and not sitting next to individuals who have not gone through a program of study and may be coming from a different discipline altogether. And so that commitment to hiring graduates is important in getting support from the institution and the faculty that may be shepherding those that process, and it's certainly important in making that case to administration that there are some small firms, some mid-sized, and some large firms that are really committed to hiring graduates of the program. I write thoughtful internships here. Obviously, internships are important, but I think thoughtful is, as you all are aware, is very important. We did a study last year with Kansas State University that looked at the reasons why individuals don't complete certification. And one of the notions that came up in this qualitative study was that some of the graduates came out of the program and they said, you know, we're not. And I should point out before I go, they weren't just from Kansas State. The participants were from a number of different institutions. But some of those graduates said, you know, my internship experience was so bad that I didn't want to continue on in this profession. That I was making copies or whatever, and they didn't get a very accurate glimpse of what the profession was going to be, or they didn't get any type of mentorship or professional engagement, and the profession ended up losing those individuals. So being thoughtful about that, I think, is really, really important. And certainly from an institutional perspective, we all see that as valuable. Participation in a career fair, whether it's virtual or not, is really, really important, and so that students have an idea of the opportunities. And if it's a career fair that it just consists of firms that have made a commitment to hiring graduates of the program, then now you've got a career fair that is going to also be something that can help in recruitment to the program. And say, well, you know, if students say, I want to work for firm X, and they're not, and firm X says we only hire we offer preference to graduates of the program, then that student may decide to enroll in the program of study. So there's real opportunity there when it comes to those career fairs and whatnot. Adjunct faculty obviously could be a way to have external support coming from a local FPA chapter or some local practitioners. So I use those as kind of in my experience in starting a new program within a new institution, that those tend to be the 5 areas that are really, really important and can be really, really helpful. And for some of you that are listening to this, it's an opportunity, I think, for you to guide that dialogue with practice. And I think practitioners, in a lot of cases, aren't really sure what to do in supporting the program. And so providing them some guidelines can essentially help them help you in a lot of cases. So getting into a little bit more of the program development point. So what are your program objectives? And this is certainly part of the application. And this is one of the first elements that I look at. And you know, why are you doing this? Why is your institution offering it? And certainly talking about how it's going to help the students with regard to their career that you're looking at. You think that this is consistent in serving the community as your mission states and whatnot. That you're certainly thinking about personal financial planning and having learning experiences that are representative as possible of real life contexts and scenarios. Commitment to preparation of future CFP professionals. I mean, that's certainly a critical point. That it's a CFP Board registered program, so it is designed to recruit students into the discipline and on to the point where they're sitting for the exam. And our existing registered programs, our evaluation of those really does focus on that process from recruitment to sitting for the exam. And those objectives should be represented throughout the program. I mean, certainly if you're talking about a commitment to personal financial planning, you're talking about contextual scenarios and whatnot. And so, you know, you say that we're about experiential learning. A lot of times this will happen where program objectives are written, and they're written beautifully, that talk about experiential learning and talk about bringing context to practice, and then it's not represented in the program. It's really not, you know, that there are multiple faculty members that really aren't doing that. And, you know, with our learning objectives document, I think we're able to provide more guidance. There are certainly challenges that come from the silos of academia, particularly if one of the registered courses are being taught within another division or department. That can be a challenge, but certainly it's really important that those objectives just aren't sitting there all by themselves, but that they are really represented throughout the program. And clearly, folks need to have to buy in. They really need to be part of that process, and faculty and administration and developing the objectives. And then there's a better chance that they're going to obviously be implemented within the program. So getting into the criteria stage, just a few nuts and bolts elements. Institutional accreditation, regional accreditation from one of the 6 regional accreditors is required. We will evaluate national accreditation or a 2-year institution on a case-by-case basis. We do have some registered programs that are not regionally accredited, that are nationally accredited. There aren't very many of those. In a lot of cases, it's institutions faith-based institutions who opt out of regional accreditation, and there are some other situations that would bring that possibility. Essentially, in most cases there's a letter that comes from the institution that discusses and outlines the accreditation of the institution and the rationale for opting for national accreditation or whatnot. So it's not, if an institution does not have regional accreditation, it's not necessarily a hard and fast no, but there is some additional information that would need to be provided. Degree or certificate title, financial planning, or CFP designation somewhere in the title of the program is highly encouraged. We certainly see a lot of new programs that have wealth management in the title, and there is some flexibility there, but we certainly strongly encourage financial planning or CFP designation. Our programs are housed in lots of different places, and we are, as I mentioned, we're really agnostic when it comes to where the programs are housed. There are benefits and challenges to each one of those areas listed, and many of the others that aren't. I think that the bigger notion really, especially now particularly with our degree programs, is the notion of accessibility. So if a program is housed in agricultural economics, for example, is there broader accessibility of that program across campus? And what does that look like? I think on the continuing education, or in some cases called extension, for those programs, I think it's the accessibility probably comes more through accessing career changers or developing. In some cases, we're seeing more financial literacy classes for adults that make them become excited about maybe a second career in financial planning. We don't see many of those, but we've certainly seen a growing number in that area to use that important topic as a recruitment tool for this profession. Length of program is 270 contact hours. We use the definitions for contact hours that were adopted by the Department of Education effective in 2010. Again, we don't have a bias towards delivery methods of program of study. I would say that speaking nationally, particularly on the certificate side, if you are a prospective certificate program, the hybrid format is certainly the fastest growing, and I think it's probably the fastest growing across a lot of disciplines right now. You know that institutions present that opportunity to students who want to know who their classmates and their instructor may be, but not want to drive to them all the time. I think that the arguments about the distinction between classroom-based and distance education and which one is of higher quality, I think that's a dated argument. I think in large part the bigger issue now is the faculty member. Well, it's always the faculty member, right? It's always the instructor. But I think when it comes to using any type of platform, is the instructor open and able to utilize all of the tools and features of the learning platform to really make it work? So I guess it always comes back to the instructor, and I think that's certainly the case when it comes to the technology that we have available. The course configuration, there are, effective in August of 2015, there are 72 required topics. And I'll just mention that how we come about that is not an arbitrary process by any means. It is a large-scale job analysis that really looks at a large number of individuals within practice and what it is that they do, and then goes through a data analysis notion to get us to what are the 72 topics, and you see those outlined there. We describe it as the largest scale financial planning research project in the world, and I think we could probably make that case. And we update that every 5 years. And we are looking at ways to actually make it more current than that without being incredibly disruptive when it comes to any type of necessary curricular updates. But we think it's an important point of certifications, and it's certainly an important point of CFP professionals that they're current relative to what's happening within the profession. So within those 72 topics, that configuration is really determined by the institution. We essentially only require one course, and that's the Capstone course, the Financial Plan Development course. All the other what would be a minimum, the Capstone course is 45 hours minimum, and then essentially because the total needs to be at least 270, the other 225 contact hours can be developed in any way the institution likes, as long as all the topics are there and it gets to 270. So how your faculty strengths may determine how you configure certain topics. If you're, for example, if you're developing a program within a business school, you may have 1 or 2 courses that are registered with us as part, or will be registered with us as part of the program, but the faculty member teaching that course may not have the expertise necessarily to address all the topics, or they may be able to embed all the topics, but you may not be really comfortable that there isn't as much experiential learning. So that's where you can go ahead and move topics to other spots, or maybe even add those into the Capstone course at the very end. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Degree programs, utilizing that existing structure to get the program up and running. In a lot of cases for an investments class or a tax class that already exists, you take our learning objectives document, which is on our registered program webpage that I'll provide here in a little bit, and you share that with faculty and see if they're able to tweak their existing courses to embed those learning objectives. I think of programs construction as a macro, micro, macro element, where at the beginning that first macro point is an understanding of what it is that a financial planner does, and essentially helps the student have a better sense of what the upcoming coursework, how that's all going to fit into the body of knowledge that they're going to need to contribute to the profession. And then obviously the micro would be all of those topic areas that I mentioned, and then we bring it back together in that macro, which is the Capstone course. So a lot of synthesis happening in application at the very end. The general principles course, which could be a macro course at the beginning, there could be cases in that. Obviously, students aren't going to be able to solve those cases, but it can be very helpful in having them understand how all of these topics fit together. There's a high level of breadth that comes from this discipline. When you think about estate planning and tax and investments, so you could set them up, I think, for success in synthesis at that very beginning. And the other part about that too is that, particularly on the degree side, that first macro point, it can be a helpful recruitment tool for students to continue on with the program if you're really thinking about what it is they're going to do in the profession. And so many introductory courses, regardless of the discipline, tend to just dive into a lot of different facts, and they're so inert because the student is a sophomore or a junior, and they don't have a good sense of what all this means. And so there's a real opportunity, I think, to recruit them to have a better sense of what it is that they would be doing, as well as prepare them for subsequent coursework. On the certificate side, I think a lot of certificate programs, I'll say before the Capstone course, worked under the assumption that a working professional had experience with the entire financial planning process. So if somebody was a student enrolled in a certificate program and they have 10 years of experience, many of our faculty work with the assumption that 10 years of experience was with the entire financial planning process, and that just hasn't been the case. And the Capstone course, I think, was an eye-opener for a lot of our faculty in that some of those folks were only working within one of those steps of the process. Well, what does that mean for program construction? Well, it means that the learner still needs to have a better sense about how all this coursework fits in before they dive into some of these other areas. That macro piece can also be helping the adult learner have a sense of what it is, what the time commitment, and kind of an induction instrument for them to become a student again, to hopefully help with retention and student completion numbers. So I already mentioned degree programs utilize existing coursework to make it work. In a lot of cases, at that point, when institutions are at an initial phase and they want to find out what it's going to cost to get a program up and running, they'll send me what they have, and I'll look at it and offer some suggestions and talk about what courses would need to be added to bring this program up and running. And then again, what courses you register will be determined by your program philosophy and certainly your faculty expertise, and I should write on there faculty willingness, right, to participate. But that's going to determine how you configure the programs. Our degree programs are configured in lots and lots of different ways. Now, our business school degree programs tend to follow a certain pattern. I would say our programs that are in family and consumer sciences or human ecology have some similar patterns, but there are lots of differences there, and there's certainly differences within agricultural economics. And we value that difference. We also have degree programs actually in continuing ed. We have two. I should mention that as well. But we see that difference is valuable, and we see that we really believe that the institution, the schools, the department's philosophy should really be represented in the program, in how the program is developed and the learning experiences that are within it. For certificate programs, it seems so basic, but one of the things that's been a real challenge to me in engaging our certificate programs is how many certificate programs don't know the profile of their students. And it makes a real difference, particularly when it comes to a marketing and a recruitment perspective. I've worked on program reconfiguration with many certificate programs, and they're not questioning their students coming in regarding their experience or their willingness to engage with the online learning platform or a hybrid or whatnot. And those are important points. If you've got in one case, late last year, I worked with a certificate program that had a 21-month, it took 21 months to complete. That was the average program completion time. And the numbers were lower, and we were able to do some research in working with existing and prospective students to get that down to around 16 months through some pretty basic changes. And initially, it's helped with enrollment. So knowing your profile is absolutely important. What are the objectives of the program? Certainly, they're basic requirements, but what is making your program different from other certificate programs? And knowing if you've got large firms in the area, what are they looking for? And can you go ahead and embed that within your program to make it more marketable? And I'd say that to the degree programs too, right? If a firm's willing to support the program, can you adopt their software? Or can you, if a firm gave a substantial amount of money for a practice management course to be offered as elective, would you be open to it? Having that dialogue, I think, is really, really important. And on the certificate side, I think it's important knowing your audience, but also how can you make your program stand out even more, even if it's marketing that you're commitment to students finishing and completers, which is certainly important. For the certificate side, what's the appropriate calendar for the program? So that's tying into that whole notion of when the class is going to meet, what's appropriate when it comes to the learning platform that will work, and are you looking to engage local firms? And for everyone, that should always be a priority in knowing exactly the local firms that are around to engage, both from a recruitment perspective, but also from a perspective of supporting graduates of the program. So I mentioned the Capstone course, and all of our requirements, all of our applications are available at cfp.net/registered programs, and this webinar will be available there as well as resources around the Capstone course. So these are the 7 learning objectives. These are required. They need to be in the syllabus, and there need to be learning experiences and an assessment instrument that assesses for learner achievement of these objectives, which is essentially a rubric. We require a rubric for this course. We don't get into exactly how you weight elements. That's a faculty decision, but there needs to be a systematic assessment of these learning objectives, and the rubric is, I think, a very good way of getting close to being limiting subjectivity and providing feedback to the learner. So this slide shows is that there need to be learning experiences that are representative of the learning objectives. And in some case, even in some of the other courses, I see learning objectives on syllabi that are just kind of inert. They're kind of standalone and by themselves. But there needs to be a pathway where the learning objectives inform the learning experiences, which ultimately lead to assessment. And down the road, that assessment based upon student achievement may inform further learning objectives. The Capstone course, again, is a standalone 45 contact hour class. It tends to occur at the end of a program study. It certainly wouldn't occur at the beginning. There needs to be a rubric. And I put flexibility here for a couple of reasons. First of all, particularly on the degree side, nationally we're seeing a bigger push for students to graduate in 4 years, particularly with our state schools. And so there are lots of cases, probably more cases than not, where students are taking another course within the registered program concurrently with the Capstone course. And so there's flexibility there in terms of maybe offering, let's say that a large number of the students in a cohort are taking estate planning while they're taking the Capstone course. Well, if you need to put elements of the estate planning course into the Capstone course at the beginning so that they're going to be successful in the 7 learning objectives, that makes sense. It also goes back to the point of remediation in the sense that, first of all, it could be a couple of years before since the student has encountered some of the elements that are in the Capstone course, or you are feeling like maybe there's a course that you registered that the faculty, the instructor is not as strong in experiential learning or whatnot, and so you kind of want to remediate at the beginning. And that's certainly understandable and encouraged. The Capstone course is really a great tool for you to evaluate the overall program of study, and certainly as you do that, you can modify instruction going forward. The student-centered learning objectives were designed in 2011 based upon the required principal topics. We validated those in 2014 and updated them and validated them again in 2015 based upon the new principal topics. They're available at the web page that's listed there, and they are used as a tool for the item writers in developing exam questions. So they're really, really important, certainly in program development, but they're also important in terms of bringing application across the curriculum and helping to give a sense of, I think, guidance to students as they go through certification. So just some very basic information here about the about what the submission process. Obviously, the syllabi needs to, I won't go through all those, but pretty standard information that needs to be on the syllabi. Regarding faculty qualifications, a graduate degree or CFP certification is really important. Individuals that have a baccalaureate degree and no CFP certification, there are only a couple of instances where we make an exception to that, but we certainly think a combination of faculty on the certificate program side. CFPs are certainly critical. On the degree program side, I think a combination of faculty with terminal degrees and CFP certification work really, really well. So talking a little bit about program sustainability kind of going forward, thinking about prerequisites or electives, I think for folks on the degree program side is important, and I've listed a few there. Again, some of those are listed, like for example, I list finance. It just depends upon where the program might be housed. But I think that could give a structure of what electives might work and encouraging students to take either leading up to or during the program of study. And then as you're thinking about this, developing a program, where's your pipeline at? And an ideal pipeline instrument is a general elective financial literacy course, particularly at the 100 or 200 level, that can help talk about basic elements of financial literacy, but also bring this profession to students' attention. We have our publisher was saying that there are close to 600,000 students currently enrolled in a course like this around the country, and it's consistent with the mission of the institution, and more states are looking at it as a requirement, and more institutions think it's important. But from a recruitment perspective, you got to have the right person teaching it. It's got to be somebody that can really get the students excited about money in some cases, and certainly excited about helping people and all the beneficial parts that come from a profession in financial planning. I usually tell institutions that are brand new, if they've got to go through getting a couple of courses added for the program of study, they should think about offering this, also going through a process of getting a financial literacy course on the books. In some cases, we've got institutions that have a cap of 400 or 500 students for this course, and it's filling up in 2 or 3 days. So it can be an incredible pipeline for a baccalaureate program. So certificate programs, getting into that admissions policy, I think we don't have a heavy hand when it comes to our admissions requirements, but there needs to be one stated, and that's certainly part of the initial application, and that just helps. I think that process helps the faculty within the program articulate who's our profile that we are really targeting in our program of study. It doesn't mean it's not going to change as new students matriculate into the program, but I think it's really important that how you teach a group of career changers in a class and how you teach individuals with 5 years of experience with all steps of the financial planning process are going to be drastically different. And so understanding that profile makes I think is critical, particularly on the certificate program side. And again, knowing your students and knowing your audience, and your audience is not only your students, but it's also your firms that can support the program through the ways that I just talked about earlier in this webinar. I think that one of the elements that comes up a lot with career changers is that sometimes you'll have programs that have half of a class that has career changers and the other half has folks with a lot of experience. So is there an opportunity to have a course at the beginning of the program of study just for career changers to get a basic understanding of the profession, and almost like on the degree program side where they have a sense of how the subsequent coursework is going to fit in. It's not going to eliminate the gap, but it could be helpful. And we've got a few institutions that are doing an entrance exam at the end of that course just so students kind of test in. I think it could be an opportunity because you can go ahead and market to those career changers saying, if you have no experience, we're going to help you get through. Kind of what the community college model is for making sure students come in and regardless of the level, remediating them and getting them to an area where they can be successful. So expanding the program footprint ties back into professionals, advisory boards, informal ways of engaging practice. I think if you're a brand new program in an institution, you can think strategically about who's going to be on that advisory board and folks that are going to support the program, folks that are going to hire students. It can be critical, and this is even for it doesn't even matter what type of program it is. This could be a great marketing tool in and of itself, of having an advisory board meet for a couple times a year and making them be heard. They don't have to be involved in every step of your curriculum. You certainly need to have a process for what it is that you want them to do, but certainly hearing them and making them part of the program can bring great resources and great possibilities for your students. Practitioners speaking with students can be great, even if it's elements of mentorship. That's certainly a hot topic now within some of our programs, is mentoring students into the profession. You can ask practitioners to assist with the evaluation of the Capstone Course, and not necessarily offering a letter grade, but just ask them to offer comments. And students get jobs from that, as some of you probably know. And so it can be a very helpful, and also it could be helpful in informing curriculum down the road. If practitioners are seeing a consistent weakness in an area, it can help inform instruction down the road. Student organizations are really, really important, regardless if it's a degree or certificate program. Great opportunities for students in the student FPA chapters, as well as for NAPFA chapters. So we certainly encourage that as a way for the program to encourage to expand its footprint both on campus and off campus. I'll just mention briefly ongoing requirements. There's a biennial renewal process, so every 2 years programs have to renew. We ask our institutions are required to submit the names of their graduates upon completion. We go through what's called a CCI, Data Analysis Certification Completion Initiative. It essentially is a metric that illustrates how graduates of your program are doing relative to 4 stages of certification, and that becomes part of the renewal process. And then engagement with CFP Board. We do engage. I visit campuses as often as I can. We have lots of conference calls, not only talking about basic requirements, but working to think strategically about the program. We have a vested interest in our programs being successful, and so we dedicate a lot of resources to making that happen. I'll mention that we have the upcoming Registered Program Conference, August 6th and 7th here in Washington. The theme this year is Building Capacity for the Future. We will also be doing a firms night that will actually be for 3 hours. Our registered programs and our prospective registered programs will meet with firms to talk about ways for partnering. This is the 2nd year that we've done this. It was incredibly successful last year, so we're expanding it. So all information about the conference is available at cfp.net/conference. And if you go to cfp.net/registered programs, you'll find lots of webinars and resources and ways to connect and whatnot. And I certainly encourage you to do that. I'm happy to speak with you to talk about program development. You can contact Nancy Odenthal at the number in the email that's listed there to schedule a call. And in some cases, I'm happy to come to campus to work with faculty and meet with administration to get the program up and running. I'd like to take about a 3 or 4 minute break so you can type your questions, and then we'll come back and I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, happy to go. We have a number of questions, so happy to go through them. So first, how many HBCUs have a board registered program? We have 11, most of which are certificate programs. We have a couple of HBCUs that have degree programs in development, and we have 16 HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutions, and we have several of those that are currently in development. So I've got a couple of folks who want to set up a meeting, and I'm happy to do that. Feel free to email registeredprograms@cfpboard.org, and we can talk about that. Question about program, where the program concentration may exist, and we are agnostic when it comes to that. I think when it comes to within the business school, we're certainly seeing more programs coming from the finance department, with only a few exceptions in accounting. So the question here asking about whether it's coming in banking and finance with a financial planning concentration, that makes perfect sense, and that's where a large number of our new programs are coming within the business school. As far as what do you suggest to encourage buy-in from the faculty? You know, it really depends upon where you are, what institution you're at. If it's a Research One institution, in some cases that can be a tougher sell, especially I think because, you know, as you're probably aware, the discipline of financial planning is a very young one, so there isn't that research tradition there. We're certainly building it alongside some of our current colleges and universities. I think, though, other than that, and even at a Research One, but certainly at other institutions, that placement argument is a very good one to make right now. Given the higher education right now and the focus on placement with student loan debt the way it is, I think some of the data regarding opportunities within financial planning is a very powerful one. And in my engagement with deans and faculty across the country, that seems to be resonating more and more. And certainly in what we're reading and coming out about student loan debt, about what accreditors are looking at right now, we've got an advantage in financial planning, and I think that's why we're seeing so many new programs coming on board. Question: where do you see degree programs, including counseling skills in the curriculum? Absolutely. I think that it's been probably slower than what practice would like when it comes to embedding counseling skills. I think that a lot of programs are doing the Capstone course really, really well. They have a good sense of maybe not teaching a lot of theory when it comes to counseling or oral presentation, but they certainly are offering some really good experiential learning opportunities. I think the challenge is particularly in the business schools, where some faculty that are teaching in programs that are teaching at courses that are registered within the program may not be embedding a lot of counseling, a lot of speaking experience and engagement experience within those courses. So I think it becomes a little bit, I think it's tougher. I don't think you could just teach this, you know, once or twice in a program of study. It really needs to be happening all the time throughout the program of study. Communications labs are popping up within the business schools that help. I would say on the family consumer science side, human ecology side, even the agricultural economics side, they've traditionally done a great job with embedding learning experiences that have counseling and communication. I'm not suggesting that one program type is better than another, but there's a little bit more curricular latitude, I think, that comes from those colleges to be able to embed some of those learning experiences within the courses. On the certificate program side, I think it just depends upon the profile of the student and whether there needs to be, if you've got folks that have been meeting with clients for 10 years in all of your classes, you've got to figure out as a program what you can do to make them better at what they're doing and certainly prepare them for certification. So I want to thank you for, I believe that's all the questions. I want to thank you for participating in today's webinar. I feel free to reach out to my department to schedule a time to speak if you'd like, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Have a good day.